Look, I'm not saying humans are particularly impressive. Captain Zixlar adjusted his sensory appendages with the alien equivalent of an eye roll. I'm just saying they have this annoying tendency to survive situations that would obliterate any rational species. Lieutenant Vrmtka clicked her mandibles dismissively. You've been watching too many of their entertainment broadcasts again. They're just mammals with delusions of grandeur. The two Galactic Union officers were monitoring Sector 8, a relatively quiet quadrant that happened to include a small blue-green planet on the outer rim of an unremarkable spiral galaxy. Their assignment was straightforward: observe but don't engage. The humans hadn't yet achieved proper faster-than-light travel, which meant they weren't eligible for first contact according to Union protocols. Have you read the latest report? Zixlar pulled up a holographic display. Their planet is experiencing simultaneous climate catastrophes, political upheaval, resource depletion, and something called reality television. Yet they're still advancing their technology at an exponential rate. It defies comprehension. So they're resilient parasites. Vermeek shrugged all 6 shoulders. The universe has plenty of those. The communication panel suddenly lit up with an incoming transmission, coded with the highest priority. Zixlar and Vrmtka exchanged concerned glances, or their species' closest approximation. This is unusual, Zixlar muttered, accepting the transmission. The stern face of Admiral Coralvine filled the screen, his crystalline features refracting light in patterns that indicated extreme agitation. Captain, Lieutenant, we have a situation. The Admiral's voice resonated with harmonics that conveyed urgency. The Draxians have decided to ignore Union protocols. They've initiated contact with Earth. Vrmtka's exoskeleton paled. The Draxians? But they're... Yes, Lieutenant. The Draxians are the most technologically advanced predatory species in the known universe. And apparently they've developed a taste for human innovation. Zixlar's appendages trembled slightly. Sir, with all due respect, shouldn't we warn the humans? The Draxians don't contact species, they harvest them. Admiral Coralvin's face hardened. That's precisely why I'm contacting you. The Union Council has authorized an emergency exception to the non-interference directive. You are to proceed to Earth immediately and assist the humans. Assist them? Vermeek sounded incredulous. Against the Draxians? That's like giving a primitive ape a stick to fight a quantum phase predator. Those are your orders, Lieutenant. The Admiral's tone brooked no argument. The Draxians must not be allowed to acquire human technology. It's too unpredictable. After the transmission ended, Zixlar and Vermeek sat in stunned silence for several moments. Well, Zixlar finally said, setting coordinates for Earth. At least we'll get to see these creatures up close before they're exterminated. Vrmtka nodded grimly. Poor bastards won't even know what hit them. Dr. Eleanor Walker was having a spectacularly awful day. First, the coffee machine in the lab had broken down, a catastrophe of biblical proportions by scientific standards. Then, 3 of her carefully cultivated bacterial cultures had mysteriously died overnight. And now, just as she was about to pack up and call it quits, every electronic device in her laboratory had simultaneously gone haywire. Oh, for fuck's sake, she muttered, watching as her computer screen flickered through a rainbow of colors that definitely weren't part of the standard operating system. If this is Gary from IT trying to be funny again, I swear I'm going to reconfigure his DNA to give him perpetual hiccups. Eleanor was the head researcher at the Quantum Biological Systems Lab, a cutting-edge facility buried within the bureaucratic maze of a government research complex. Her team specialized in the intersection of quantum mechanics and biological systems, a field that most serious scientists had once dismissed as pseudo-scientific nonsense. Until, of course, Eleanor and her team had proven them all spectacularly wrong by developing quantum-entangled bacteria that could theoretically communicate instantaneously across any distance. The technology was still in its infancy, but the implications were staggering. Instantaneous communication across the vastness of space without the limitations of light speed? It would revolutionize humanity's approach to space exploration. If she could get her damn equipment to work properly, that is. Dr. Walker? Her assistant Oliver poked his head through the doorway. His perpetually disheveled appearance was enhanced by the look of mild panic on his face. There are some people here to see you. Eleanor didn't look up from the malfunctioning equipment. Tell them to make an appointment like normal human beings. That's just it. Oliver's voice dropped to a whisper. I don't think they are normal human beings, or, human beings at all. That got her attention. Eleanor finally looked up, pushing her glasses up the bridge of her nose. What are you talking about? They just appeared in the lobby. Security didn't stop them because, well, they said they couldn't see them. But I could. And now they're asking for you specifically. Eleanor stared at him. Oliver was many things. Brilliant, awkward, possibly somewhere on the spectrum. But he wasn't prone to hallucinations or practical jokes. Fine, she sighed, standing up. Let's go meet your invisible friends. As she followed Oliver down the hallway, Eleanor mentally catalogued the possible explanations. A prank by her colleagues, a psychological break from overwork, or perhaps someone had slipped something into her terrible cafeteria lunch. What she wasn't prepared for was the sight that greeted her in the lobby. Two figures stood in the center of the room. The security guards were at their stations, looking straight through the visitors as if they weren't there at all. One creature was tall and spindly, with multiple appendages and what appeared to be a translucent exoskeleton. The other was shorter, more compact, with a body that seemed to shift and shimmer like liquid metal. Dr. Eleanor Walker, the taller one spoke, not with sound but directly into her mind. We are representatives of the Galactic Union. I am Captain Zixlar, and this is Lieutenant Vermtke. We require your immediate assistance. Eleanor stared, mouth slightly open. After a moment, she found her voice. Well, that's not something you hear every day. You can see us? The shorter one, Vermtke, asked, sounding surprised. Obviously, Eleanor replied. And hear you, or think hear you, or whatever this is. Zixlar and Vermtke exchanged what she could only interpret as significant glances. Interesting, Zixlar mused. Most species can't perceive us through our phase shift technology. Yeah, well, I'm special like that, Eleanor said dryly. Look, I'm having a really bad day, so unless you're here to fix my coffee machine or explain why my bacteria are dying, I'm going to have to ask you to come back another time. Preferably after I've had several strong drinks and come to terms with the fact that aliens are real. Your bacteria, Vermtke said suddenly. The quantum entangled ones, that's why we're here. Eleanor froze. How do you know about that? That research is classified. We know many things about your species, Zixlar replied. But there's no time to explain. Your planet is in imminent danger. The Draxians are coming, and they're particularly interested in your work. The who now? The Draxians, Vermtke repeated impatiently. Imagine the most advanced predatory species you can conceive, then give them technology thousands of years beyond your comprehension, and a moral code that makes your historical dictators look like benevolent caregivers. Sounds charming, Eleanor said. And they're coming here? To Earth? Not coming, Zixlar corrected. They've arrived. We detected their ship entering your solar system approximately 6 of your hours ago. They'll reach Earth within 24 hours. Eleanor took a deep breath. Okay, so let me get this straight. Super advanced alien predators are on their way to Earth, possibly to steal my research, and you two are... what? Here to help? Precisely, Zixlar confirmed. Out of the goodness of your hearts? Or whatever organs you have that serve that function? Vermtke made a sound that might have been a laugh. The Union has a vested interest in preventing Draxian expansion. Let's leave it at that. Eleanor looked between them, then at Oliver, who was staring at her with wide eyes. To the security guards, it must have appeared as if they were having an animated conversation with thin air. You know what? She finally said. This day couldn't possibly get any weirder. So sure, let's go save the world from space predators. But first, I need coffee. As it turned out, alien technology could indeed fix a broken coffee machine. It could also transform said machine into a device that produced the most sublime caffeine-based beverage Eleanor had ever tasted. This is amazing, she murmured, cradling the cup like a precious artifact. If you'd led with this, I would have believed you immediately. They had relocated to her lab, where Zixlar was examining her equipment with what appeared to be genuine interest, while Vermtke paced nervously by the window. Your quantum entanglement approach is quite innovative, Zixlar commented, manipulating a holographic representation of her bacteria's DNA structure. Most species attempt to achieve quantum communication through inorganic means. Using biological systems as the foundation is unusual. Thanks, I think. Eleanor took another sip of the miraculous coffee. So these Draxians, why are they so interested in my work specifically? Vermtke stopped pacing. The Draxians have mastered virtually every technology imaginable, with one exception, biological quantum entanglement. Their physiology is fundamentally incompatible with the process. Which makes your research invaluable to them, Zixlar added. With it, they could establish instantaneous communication networks across their territories, greatly enhancing their already formidable military capabilities. Eleanor frowned. But my research is nowhere near that advanced. We've barely managed to entangle bacteria over a few meters, let alone across space. The principles are what matter, Vrmtek explained. Once they understand your approach, they can accelerate the development using their existing knowledge. Great, Eleanor muttered. So I've accidentally created the key to helping space monsters improve their evil empire. That's going on my resume for sure. Oliver, who had been quietly absorbing everything from a corner of the lab, finally spoke up. Can't we just destroy the research? If it's that dangerous, no! Eleanor and Zixlar exclaimed simultaneously. The research itself isn't the problem, Eleanor explained. It could revolutionize human communication, medicine, space exploration, and the Draxians would simply extract the knowledge directly from your mind, Zixlar added grimly. They have ways of doing that which are unpleasant. A heavy silence fell over the room. So what's the plan? Eleanor finally asked. You said you're here to help, but you're just two, whatever you are, against an advanced predatory species, with technology thousands of years beyond ours. Vrmtek made the laughing sound again. Oh, we're not going to fight them. That would be suicide. Then what? Zixlar's sensory appendages wiggled in what might have been embarrassment. We were hoping you might have ideas. Humans have a reputation for being unexpectedly resourceful. Eleanor stared at them incredulously. Let me get this straight. You came all this way to warn us about an existential threat, but you don't actually have a plan to deal with it. The Union's protocols are quite clear, Vrmtek said defensively. We are to inform, advise, and provide limited technological assistance. Direct intervention in species conflicts is strictly prohibited. How convenient for you, Eleanor said dryly. Actually, Oliver interjected, I might have an idea. All eyes turned to him, and he seemed to shrink slightly under the attention. It's about the bacteria. What if we could weaponize them somehow? Zixlar's appendages stiffened. Biological warfare is prohibited by, not as a disease, Oliver clarified quickly. But if the Draxians are coming for the quantum entanglement technology, maybe we could use that same technology against them. A sort of quantum trap. Eleanor's eyes widened as she caught on. The phase variance in the entanglement field. Oliver, you're a genius. I am? He blinked. Would someone please explain? Vrmtek demanded. Eleanor was already moving around the lab, pulling up data on screens and gathering equipment. One of the challenges we faced with quantum-entangled bacteria was controlling the phase variance. Sometimes, when the entanglement isn't perfectly stable, it creates a cascade effect in nearby quantum systems. A quantum disruption, Zixlar realized. But how would that help against Draxian technology? Doesn't all advanced technology rely on quantum principles to some degree? Eleanor asked. If we could trigger a large enough cascade, it might temporarily disable their systems. Or create a tear in the fabric of space-time that swallows your entire planet, Vrmtek muttered. Always the optimist, aren't you? Eleanor shot back. Look, unless you have a better idea, this is what we're going with. Zixlar seemed to be considering the proposal. It's not entirely without merit. Draxian technology does indeed rely heavily on quantum manipulation, but creating a disruption large enough to affect their ship would require an enormous amount of energy. Leave that to me, Eleanor said with determination. Oliver, get on the phone with Director Fleming. Tell him it's a code black and that I need access to the particle accelerator. The one that's still experimental? That hasn't been properly tested? Oliver asked nervously. That's the one, Eleanor confirmed. And while you're at it, tell him we're going to need every quantum physicist in the country on a video call in 1 hour. As Oliver hurried off, Vrmtek turned to Zixlar. Captain, this plan seems extremely risky. Yes, Zixlar agreed, and likely to violate at least 17 Union regulations. There was a pause. I find I don't particularly care at this moment. Eleanor looked up from her work. Welcome to humanity's influence, Captain. We specialize in making others throw rulebooks out the window. 12 hours later, the underground facility housing the experimental particle accelerator was abuzz with activity. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel rushed about, following Eleanor's increasingly urgent directives. In the center of it all, Eleanor worked alongside Zixlar and Vrmtek, who had provided critical insights into Draxian technology. Director Fleming, a stern man with a military background who had initially balked at Eleanor's wild claims, had become a believer once Zixlar had demonstrated the ability to make himself visible to everyone. The director had promptly declared a national security emergency and mobilized every resource at his disposal. "The Draxian ship has entered Earth's atmosphere," Zixlar announced, monitoring a device of alien design. "They're maintaining high orbit for now, but they've begun scanning for quantum signatures." "They'll find us soon enough," Eleanor murmured, making final adjustments to what they had dubbed the quantum disruptor, essentially a modified particle accelerator designed to amplify the phase variance in her quantum-entangled bacteria to unprecedented levels. "How long until the device is ready?" Fleming demanded. 20 minutes, maybe less," Eleanor replied without looking up. "But we have another problem. Someone needs to be here to activate it manually once the Draxians are in range. The timing has to be perfect." "I'll do it." Oliver volunteered immediately. Eleanor shook her head. "No, it has to be me. I'm the only one who understands exactly how the bacteria will respond." "That is unacceptable," Fleming objected. "You're too valuable." "With all due respect, Director," Eleanor cut him off. "This isn't a democracy. This is my research, my bacteria, and my responsibility. Besides, I'm the one who accidentally created what might be the downfall of our species. Seems only fair I should be the one to fix it." Before Fleming could argue further, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. "They've found us," Firmatic announced grimly. "Draxian scouts are entering the atmosphere directly above this location." "Everyone out," Fleming ordered, immediately shifting into evacuation mode. "Get to the bunkers and wait for the all-clear." As personnel streamed toward the exits, Eleanor continued working feverishly. Zixlar approached her, his alien features difficult to read. "You understand the danger, yes?" he asked quietly. "If the quantum cascade becomes unstable, I'll be atomized at the subatomic level," Eleanor finished for him. "Yes, I'm aware of the occupational hazards. Yet you remain." Eleanor shrugged, not looking up from her work. "Someone has to." Zixlar was silent for a moment. "The Union has misunderstood your species, I think. We saw your conflicts, your divisions, your seemingly self-destructive tendencies, and concluded you were primitive and chaotic." "We are," Eleanor said with a small smile. "But we're also stubborn as hell." "A formidable combination," Zixlar acknowledged. "Lieutenant Vermek and I will return to our ship and attempt to distract the Draxians. Give you more time." "Be careful," Eleanor said, finally looking up. "I'd hate to lose the only aliens I've ever met before I get a chance to write a paper about you." Zixlar made a sound that might have been a chuckle. "We will meet again, Dr. Walker. Of that, I am certain." After the aliens departed, only Eleanor, Oliver, and Director Fleming remained in the vast chamber housing the particle accelerator. "You should both go," Eleanor told them, making the final connections on the quantum disruptor. "I can handle it from here." "Not a chance," Oliver replied stubbornly. "I've been your assistant for 3 years. I'm not abandoning you now." Fleming checked his sidearm, a laughably inadequate weapon against what they were facing, but it seemed to give him comfort. The United States government doesn't abandon its scientists to alien invaders. It's bad for recruitment. Despite everything, Eleanor laughed. "Fine. Oliver, monitor the quantum field strength. Director, keep an eye on those scanners. I need to know the moment the Draxians enter the upper atmosphere above us." They worked in tense silence for several minutes, the only sounds the hum of equipment and the distant wail of evacuation sirens. "Dr. Walker," Fleming suddenly called, his voice tight. "We have company." Eleanor looked up at the main screen. A massive ship, unlike anything human engineering could produce, was descending through the clouds directly above their facility. It was enormous, easily the size of a small city, with a design that somehow managed to look both organic and mechanical at once. "That's bigger than I expected," Oliver whispered. "Quantum field generator at 90%, Eleanor reported, her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "Just need a few more minutes." "We may not have a few more minutes," Fleming replied grimly, watching as smaller craft began to deploy from the massive ship. The facility shuddered as something impacted the ground above them. "They're landing," Fleming announced unnecessarily. "Defense systems are engaging, but—" A much larger explosion cut him off, and the lights flickered ominously. "Our surface defenses have been neutralized," he concluded grimly. 95%, Eleanor reported, her fingers flying over controls. "Almost there." Another explosion, closer this time, sent dust raining from the ceiling. "They're breaching the outer perimeter," Fleming said, raising his weapon. "Dr. Walker, how much longer?" 30 seconds! The massive blast doors at the far end of the chamber began to glow red, then orange, then white with heat. "They're cutting through." Oliver's voice cracked with fear. 20 seconds, Eleanor called, refusing to look away from her instruments. The center of the blast door suddenly collapsed inward, molten metal splattering across the floor. Through the opening, they could see figures moving. Tall, sleek forms that looked almost reptilian, but with an unsettling mechanical precision to their movements. Fleming opened fire, the sound of his weapon deafening in the enclosed space. The bullets seemed to have no effect whatsoever. 10 seconds! The first Draxian stepped through the breach, easily 7 feet tall, with iridescent scales and eyes that glowed with an unnatural intelligence. It surveyed the room dismissively, then focused on Eleanor and the equipment surrounding her. Human. Its voice was oddly melodic, yet devoid of emotion. Your resistance is noted but irrelevant. Surrender your research, and your death will be swift. Funny, Eleanor replied, her hand hovering over the activation switch. I was about to make you the same offer. The Draxian's eyes narrowed. You cannot comprehend the technology you are tampering with. Your species is barely beyond using combustion for propulsion. Yeah, we're pretty backward, Eleanor agreed. But we do have one redeeming quality. And what is that? The Draxian asked, taking another step forward. Eleanor smiled and pressed the switch. We're really good at improvising. The particle accelerator hummed to life, energy coursing through the quantum-entangled bacteria at its core. The phase variants began to cascade, exactly as they had planned. The Draxian's confident demeanor faltered as its technology began to malfunction. Its scales, which Eleanor now realized were some form of advanced tech-organic armor, flickered and distorted. What have you done? It demanded, its melodic voice now discordant and glitching. Created a localized quantum disruption field, Eleanor explained as calmly as if she were giving a lecture. Turns out, when you mess with the fundamental forces that hold reality together, even fancy alien tech has a hard time functioning properly. More Draxians were entering through the breach, all experiencing the same disturbing malfunctions. Some collapsed entirely, their systems completely overwhelmed. The lead Draxian staggered forward, fighting against the quantum disruption. That changes nothing. Our fleet will— Your fleet is experiencing the same problems, Eleanor interrupted, pointing to a display showing the massive Draxian ship above them. It was listing to one side, lights flickering erratically across its surface. Quantum entanglement is a fascinating phenomenon. Once established, distance becomes irrelevant. The disruption affecting you is simultaneously affecting every piece of Draxian technology within Earth's orbit. The Draxian's glowing eyes flickered, but its determination remained. Then we will wait. Your disruption cannot be maintained indefinitely. True, Eleanor conceded, but it doesn't need to be. She nodded to Oliver, who activated a secondary system they had prepared. We've just transmitted the quantum disruption formula to every major scientific institution on Earth. Within hours, disruption generators will be operational worldwide. Any Draxian technology that enters Earth's atmosphere will immediately cease functioning. Impossible, the Draxian hissed. No primitive species could— Here's the thing about us primitive humans, Eleanor cut in. We're really, really good at figuring out how to break things, especially when those things are trying to kill us. The Draxian seemed to consider this, its alien features impossible to read. Then, without warning, it began to laugh, a chilling, inhuman sound that echoed through the chamber. Perhaps, it finally said, we have underestimated your species. It's a common mistake, Eleanor replied. Now I suggest you gather your troops and leave before the quantum disruption permanently damages your neural interfaces. That would be unpleasant. For a tense moment, it seemed the Draxian might attack, regardless of the consequences. Then, with a gesture that might have been respect, or possibly just resignation, it turned and began herding its malfunctioning companions back through the breach. This isn't over, human, it called back. We will adapt. We will return. And we'll be ready, Eleanor promised. Oh, and you might want to spread the word to other predatory species out there. Earth is now officially off limits. When the last Draxian had retreated, Fleming finally lowered his weapon, his hands shaking slightly. Did we just win? For now, Eleanor replied, her adrenaline beginning to fade. They'll be back eventually, with technology that's resistant to our quantum disruption. But by then, we'll have advanced even further. Oliver was staring at the screens monitoring the Draxian ship, which was now rapidly ascending back into space. I can't believe it worked. We just fought off an alien invasion with bacteria. Quantum-entangled bacteria, Eleanor corrected with a tired smile. It makes all the difference. 3 months later, Eleanor stood on the roof of the research facility, gazing up at the night sky. The Draxian incident, as it was now known, had transformed humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. The knowledge that they were not alone, and that some of what was out there was decidedly unfriendly, had initially caused panic, but it had quickly given way to an unprecedented global cooperation. Eleanor's quantum disruption technology had been shared worldwide, and defensive systems had been established on every continent. More importantly, her research into quantum-entangled bacteria had accelerated exponentially, with applications now extending to everything from medicine to communications. "Stargazing, Dr. Walker?" A familiar voice that wasn't a voice spoke in her mind. Eleanor turned to find Zixlar standing behind her, his alien form shimmering slightly in the moonlight. "Captain," she greeted him with a genuine smile. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten about us." "Hardly," Zixlar replied, joining her at the railing. "The Union has been quite occupied with the aftermath of your encounter with the Draxians." "Oh?" Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "Did they complain to the management?" "In a manner of speaking." Zixlar's sensory appendages wiggled with what she now recognized as amusement. "The Draxians have formally requested that the Union classify humans as a protected aggressive species." Eleanor burst out laughing. "Protected aggressive? Is that even a category?" "It is now," Zixlar confirmed. "It means other species are warned to avoid contact unless prepared for significant resistance." "So we've been labeled as dangerous, do not approach?" Eleanor shook her head, still chuckling. "I suppose there are worse reputations to have out there." "Indeed," Zixlar agreed. "The Union Council was quite impressed with your solution, by the way. Quantum disruption as a defensive strategy had been theorized but never successfully implemented before." "Just doing what humans do best," Eleanor shrugged. "Figuring things out when our backs are against the wall." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, contemplating the stars. "Lieutenant Vermtic sends her regards," Zixlar eventually said. "She's been assigned to oversee the establishment of a monitoring outpost near your solar system." "So we're getting our own alien babysitters now?" "More like diplomatic observers," Zixlar corrected. "Your species has attracted considerable attention. The Union believes it would be prudent to establish official channels of communication." Eleanor turned to face him fully. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "The Union Council has voted to extend an invitation for Earth to become an associate member of the Galactic Union," Zixlar confirmed. "It's unprecedented for a species that hasn't independently developed FTL travel, but exceptions can be made for exceptional circumstances." "And are quantum bacteria qualified as exceptional circumstances?" "That, and the fact that you managed to repel a Draxian assault force with technology cobbled together in less than 24 hours, Zixlar replied. "It made quite an impression," Eleanor laughed again. "Wait until they see what we can do with proper preparation time." "That," Zixlar said, his mental voice carrying a note of both amusement and caution, "is precisely what has the Council both excited and terrified." "As it should be," Eleanor replied with a grin. "We're just getting started." Above them, the stars seemed a little brighter, a little closer than before. And somewhere out there, word was spreading across the galaxy. The humans of Earth were no longer asking for help. They were ready to be feared. In the grand scheme of the universe, Earth was still just a tiny blue dot orbiting an ordinary star in an unremarkable galaxy. But perceptions were changing rapidly. In space dock lounges and alien marketplaces across the known sectors, rumors spread about the strange mammals who had repelled the Draxians with primitive technology and sheer audacity. "I heard they disabled an entire Draxian battle fleet with microscopic organisms," a Tralaxian merchant whispered to his companions. "That's nothing," replied a grizzled Vorn trader. "My cousin's shipmate swears they've got a weapon that can disrupt the fabric of space-time itself." The rumors grew more outlandish with each retelling, but the core truth remained. Humanity had stood up to one of the most feared species in the galaxy, and not only survived, but emerged victorious. In the Galactic Union Council chambers, heated debates raged about how to properly integrate these unpredictable humans into the galactic community. Some advocated for caution and containment, while others saw potential allies in the ongoing Cold War with the Draxian Empire. And on Earth, humanity did what it had always done best: adapted, innovated, and prepared for whatever the universe might throw at them next. The quantum disruption technology had already spawned dozens of new research fields. Global defense systems were being established, and Eleanor Walker had become the reluctant face of humanity's new relationship with the stars, dividing her time between advancing her research and participating in preliminary diplomatic discussions with Union representatives. "You know," Oliver remarked one day as they worked in the lab, now significantly upgraded with technology provided by the Union. I never thought I'd say this, but getting threatened with extinction by alien predators might be the best thing that ever happened to our species. Eleanor looked up from the quantum interface she was calibrating. How do you figure? Look around, he gestured broadly. 6 months ago, nations were arguing about border disputes and economic policies. Now they're pooling resources to build orbital defense platforms and accelerate space exploration. We've made more technological progress in the last 3 months than in the previous decade. Nothing unites people like a common enemy, Eleanor agreed. And the best part? Oliver continued, his eyes bright with excitement. We don't even need to worry about them coming back anytime soon. According to Captain Zixalar, the Draxians are completely redesigning their technology to counter quantum disruption. It could take them years. Eleanor's expression grew more serious. Which means we have years to prepare for their return, and trust me, they will return. But we'll be ready, Oliver said confidently. Eleanor smiled at his optimism. Yes, we will. And next time, we won't just be defending ourselves. We'll be showing the galaxy exactly what humanity is capable of. Across the facility, in a secure conference room, Director Fleming was concluding a video call with his international counterparts. The world's first unified space defense program had been approved, with Eleanor's quantum technology at its core. Gentlemen, ladies, he addressed the assembled officials. I believe we've taken the first steps toward ensuring humanity's security in a universe that's proven to be far more crowded and dangerous than we ever imagined. But let's not forget, this is just the beginning. One of the officials, a stern-faced woman representing the European Union, spoke up. The question remains, do we approach this new reality from a defensive posture, or do we take a more proactive stance? Fleming considered her question carefully. For now, we focus on defense and knowledge acquisition. We learn everything we can from our new allies in the Galactic Union. We strengthen our position, and then, prompted a representative from Japan. Fleming allowed himself a small smile. Then we show the galaxy that humanity is done asking for help. From now on, we help ourselves. As the meeting concluded, Fleming gazed out the window at the night sky, where the first of many orbital defense platforms was already under construction, visible as a bright point of light crossing the heavens. The universe had thrown down a gauntlet, and humanity had not only picked it up, but was now using it to forge something new. Something powerful, something uniquely human. The day humanity stopped asking for help and started getting feared had come and gone. What followed would be the days, years, and centuries of humanity proving exactly why that fear was justified. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the Draxians were already learning that painful lesson. The end. So you're telling me the most terrifying predator species in the known universe is what? Hiding? Extinct? Imaginary? Admiral Kivlox, his compound eyes narrowing at his intelligence officer. Lieutenant Zrixnir fidgeted nervously, tentacles twisting around the data pad. None of the above, sir. They're answering their emails. Their what? Emails, sir. Electronic correspondence. Apparently they've been busy. The enormous Cloraxian admiral slammed a claw against the command console. Busy, busy. The Vreklar Dominion has laid waste to 17 systems. They've conquered the Andromeda Trade Federation, dismantled the Galactic Council, and enslaved the entire Quilaxian species. And these humans can't be bothered to respond because they're busy? Not exactly, sir. Zrixnir's voice dropped to a whisper. I've been informed they received our distress signals, all 6,342 of them. They're processing our request. Processing? It's been 14 cycles. Yes, sir. They, apologize for the delay. Rebecca Walsh stared at the blinking notification on her terminal. The little red badge showed 6,342 unread messages, all tagged, urgent, intergalactic distress. Hey, Milo, she called out, not bothering to look away from her screen. Did you ever get around to that alien invasion thing? Across the office, Milo Kumar groaned loudly, spinning around in his ergonomic chair. Oh God, is that still in the queue? I thought Naveen was handling it. Naveen's on paternity leave, remember? His twins were born last month. Right. The cute ones with the little antennae hats. Milo rolled his chair over to Rebecca's terminal. How bad is it? Scale of 1 to 10? Rebecca scrolled through the latest message. Let's see. Dominion warships have decimated the outer colonies. Billions of lives lost. Complete societal collapse imminent. I'm gonna go with an 8. Huh, that's not great. Milo scratched his beard. But is it stop everything and call the president bad, or fit it into next week's schedule bad? Well, according to this, they've been sending messages for 14 galactic cycles? Milo winced. Oh, how long is that in Earth time? About 8 months. Oh, shit. That's definitely a customer service violation. Dimitri's gonna be pissed. Rebecca sighed, opening a new requisition form. I'll flag it for immediate response. Should I copy Fletcher's team, or is this strictly a military thing? Better copy everyone. Diplomatic Corps, Space Force, the Science Division. Oh, and Henderson in accounting. You know how he gets when we authorize fleet deployment without notifying him first. Good call. Rebecca's fingers flew across the keyboard. Remember that time we liberated the Procyon cluster and he had to retroactively approve the fuel expenditures? 3 weeks of passive-aggressive emails about proper channels. Milo shuddered. Never again. The Reklar Supreme Commander loomed over the captured Chloraxian vessel's bridge. His massive, armored exoskeleton gleamed under the emergency lighting, barbed appendages clicking methodically against the metal floor as he approached Admiral Kivlox. Your resistance is both futile and tedious. The Vreklar's translator device rendered his screeching into comprehensible language. Surrender the coordinates of the human homeworld, and I will consider granting your crew a merciful death. Admiral Kivlox, despite being bound in neural restraints, managed a clicking laugh. You want to find the humans? Be my guest. Save me the headache of dealing with their bureaucracy. The Vreklar commander leaned in close, his bioluminescent eyes pulsing with malice. You think this is amusing? The humans are the only species to have ever defeated a Vreklar armada. Their weapons technology is centuries beyond anything we've encountered. Their tactical brilliance is legendary, and yet they have abandoned the galaxy to our conquest. Abandoned? No, they're just processing our request. Processing. The Vreklar's voice modulator couldn't quite capture the mix of confusion and contempt. Yes, very thoroughly, I'm told. Kivlox's mandibles formed what might have passed for a smile. They have to fill out the proper forms. So what exactly are we dealing with here? General Alexa Foster leaned forward in her chair, eyes scanning the holographic display in the center of the Pentagon's Extraterrestrial Response Unit conference room. Dr. Raj Gupta, head of xenobiology, adjusted his glasses. The Reklar are essentially hyper-evolved arthropods. Think of them as space locusts, but with nuclear weapons and a complex religious belief system centered around consumption. Space locusts, Foster repeated flatly, with nukes and religion. That's an oversimplification, but yes. Gupta swiped through several gruesome images of devastated worlds. They strip planets of resources, enslave useful species, and exterminate the rest. They've been working their way through the Orion Arm for the past decade. Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Barnes raised his hand. Quick question. Why the hell are we just hearing about this now? Rebecca Walsh cleared her throat nervously. There was a communication oversight. Their distress signals were routed to the General Assistance inbox rather than the imminent threat queue. For 8 months? Barnes looked incredulous. In our defense, Milo added, we get a lot of alerts tagged as galaxy-ending catastrophes. Last month, the Regellians sent 16 urgent messages because they couldn't figure out how to update their trade agreement software. Foster pinched the bridge of her nose. So while we've been ignoring our inbox, these bugs have conquered half the local cluster? 17 systems, Rebecca confirmed, but they're still 6 months from reaching Earth's vicinity. Well, that's something at least. Foster turned to the military attachés. What assets do we have available for immediate deployment? Admiral Wilson consulted his tablet. The 5th Deep Space Fleet is on training exercises near Proxima Centauri. The 3rd Expeditionary Force is returning from that diplomatic mission to the Pleiadian Alliance, and we have about 24 autonomous defense platforms we could repurpose. That's it? It's February, ma'am. Wilson shrugged. Everyone used up their combat budget in December so they wouldn't lose it for the next fiscal year. We've got a skeleton crew until the new funding kicks in. Foster stared at the ceiling for a long moment. You're telling me we have to save the galaxy on a shoestring budget because of accounting rules? Welcome to government work, Milo muttered. Actually, Rebecca interjected, there might be another option. She pulled up a different file. The Chloraxians mentioned a third-party contractor they've worked with before. Apparently, they've got experience with the Vreklar and might be willing to help, provided we handle the paperwork correctly. Foster's eyes narrowed. What kind of contractor? They call themselves the Collective, sort of a mercenary group, but with better PR. Great, Foster sighed. Space mercenaries. Can this get any more complicated? Henderson from accounting chose that moment to walk in, carrying an intimidatingly thick binder. I heard we're authorizing an emergency military response? He asked cheerfully. I've prepared the expenditure forms. We'll need signatures in triplicate, and I'll need a complete inventory of every photon torpedo you plan to use. Foster dropped her head to the table with a thud. The Vreklar invasion fleet moved like a plague of mechanical locusts through the Cygnus X1 star system, their ships consuming asteroids and minor planets for raw materials. Aboard his command vessel, Supreme Commander Vraxkor reviewed the latest intelligence reports with mounting frustration. Still nothing? He demanded. His subordinate bobbed nervously. No, Supreme One. The humans have acknowledged receipt of our ultimatum, but have not yet responded with their surrender terms. It's been 14 planetary rotations! Vraxkor crushed a nearby control panel with one massive claw. Are they not taking our threats seriously? They sent this. The subordinate cautiously extended a data tablet. Vraxkor snatched it and read aloud. Thank you for your interest in conquering Earth. Your threat has been received and is important to us. Due to high volume of invasion attempts, response times are longer than usual. Please do not submit multiple extinction threats as this may delay processing. You are number 47 in the queue. The Supreme Commander's exoskeleton quivered with rage. Is this some form of psychological warfare? Unknown, Supreme One. Our cultural analysts suggest it might be what humans call bureaucracy. No species can survive with such inefficiency, Vraxkor roared. Send another ultimatum. Inform them we will destroy one of their colony worlds every solar rotation until they respond properly. Actually, Supreme One, the subordinate hesitated. They included an addendum about that. He pointed to fine print at the bottom of the message. Vraxkor squinted at the tiny text. Attempts to expedite response through destruction of UEF territory will result in application being moved to our hostile entities queue with extended processing times of 6 to 8 weeks. For the first time in his long, conquest-filled life, the Supreme Commander felt a twinge of uncertainty. The Collective has accepted our contract, Rebecca announced, walking into the command center with a stack of digital tablets. Though they did have some conditions. General Foster looked up from the tactical display. Such as? They want exclusive salvage rights to any Reklar technology, a 15% commission on all liberated resources, and... Rebecca grimaced. Credit in all press releases. Press releases? Foster blinked. We're trying to prevent galactic genocide, not launch a movie. Apparently they're big on brand recognition. Rebecca handed over a tablet. They've included their logo and preferred font guidelines. Milo leaned over Foster's shoulder. Ooh, nice typography, very sleek. Foster ignored him. When can they deploy? That's the good news. Rebecca's face brightened. They were already mobilizing based on the Cloraxian contract. They're rendezvousing with our 5th Fleet in 6 hours. Finally, something's going our way. Foster turned back to the tactical display, where red indicators showing Vreklar fleet movements were spreading like a rash across the star chart. What's our first target? Admiral Wilson brought up a detailed view of a binary star system. The Vreklar have established their forward command post in the Epsilon Indi system. If we can disrupt their communication hub, it will slow their advance and buy us time to evacuate the threatened colonies. Good. Make it happen. Foster turned to Dr. Gupta. Anything new on potential weaknesses we can exploit? Actually, yes. Gupta pulled up a biochemical analysis. We've been studying the Reklar physiological data provided by the Cloraxians. Their exoskeletons contain high concentrations of a compound similar to our terrestrial chitin, but with a unique molecular structure that makes them incredibly resilient to energy weapons. That's a strength, not a weakness, Barnes pointed out. True, but this particular form of chitin has an unexpected vulnerability. Gupta's eyes gleamed with scientific excitement. It breaks down when exposed to a specific frequency of ultrasonic vibration. Milo perked up. Are you saying we can defeat the most terrifying conquering force in the galaxy with the equivalent of a dog whistle? A very powerful, precisely calibrated dog whistle, Gupta clarified. But essentially, yes. Rebecca was already typing furiously. I'll notify R&D to begin modifications to our weapon systems. And I'll prepare the requisition forms. Henderson added helpfully, producing yet another binder. Foster ignored the collective groan from the military personnel. How quickly can we adapt our existing armaments? The Collective might be able to help with that, Rebecca suggested. According to their profile, they specialize in unconventional weapons technology. Perfect. Set up a secure channel. Foster stood, straightening her uniform. It's time we showed these Reklar why it's a bad idea to invade Earth, even if we are a bit slow with our emails. The meeting with the Collective's representative was not going as expected. For one thing, he was human. Marcus Blackwood, the tall, scarred man, introduced himself with a casual salute. Formerly Captain, UEF Special Tactics, now Chief Operations Officer for the Collective. Foster stared at him. You're not what we were expecting. Let me guess. Blackwood's mouth quirked into a half-smile. You were thinking tentacles? Glowing eyes? Maybe some dramatic bioluminescence? Something like that. Yeah, we get that a lot. He tapped the holo projector, bringing up a series of tactical displays. The Collective is mostly human, actually. Ex-military, scientists who couldn't get ethical approval for their research, engineers who got tired of building phones when they could be building starships. Space mercenaries, Barnes muttered. We prefer private security contractors, Blackwood corrected without looking up. With a side business in advanced R&D, speaking of which. He tossed a small metallic sphere onto the conference table, where it hovered a few inches above the surface. Your ultrasonic weapon, already calibrated to the Vreklar exoskeleton frequency. Gupta reached for it with undisguised curiosity. How did you adapt it so quickly? We just sent the specs 6 hours ago. We've fought Vreklar before, Blackwood shrugged. Found that weakness about 3 years ago during a skirmish near the Perseus Arm. Foster frowned. And you didn't think to share this information with Earth Defense? We filed the appropriate reports. Blackwood's expression turned pointedly neutral. They're probably still in someone's inbox. Rebecca and Milo suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. Right, Foster moved on. What's the effective range on these devices? About 50 meters for direct physiological impact. But the real beauty is what happens after. Blackwood grinned, all teeth and no humor. Their exoskeletons start to microfracture. Doesn't kill them immediately, but makes them vulnerable to conventional weapons. Plus, it hurts like hell. Humane, Foster noted dryly. More humane than what they did to the Quilaxians. Blackwood's face hardened. I was there for the aftermath. Trust me, these bugs deserve everything they get. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. So, Milo eventually broke in. Do we have enough of these sonic thingies for the entire fleet? We'll have 5,000 units delivered to your ships within 48 hours, Blackwood confirmed. My engineers are also transmitting schematics so your people can manufacture more. And the cost? Henderson asked nervously. Blackwood waved a dismissive hand. Consider it a professional courtesy. The real profit's in the salvage anyway. Foster nodded slowly. Then I think we're ready to proceed with operation planning. Actually, Blackwood held up a finger. There's one more thing you should know. The Vreklar? They're terrified of humans. What? Several voices spoke at once. Oh yeah, we're like their cultural bogeyman. There's a whole religious prophecy about the world takers who move between stars, led by the Death Speakers. He chuckled. Apparently, our habit of filling out forms before obliterating our enemies really freaks them out. They think it's some kind of death ritual. Rebecca blinked. Our bureaucracy scares them? Ironically, yes. They're a hive-oriented species with a strict command structure. The idea that we would delay military action to file paperwork is completely alien to them. They interpret it as a sign of unimaginable confidence. Blackwood leaned forward, which gives me an idea for how we might end this without a full-scale war. Supreme Commander Vraxkor was not having a good cycle. First, the humans had failed to properly acknowledge his ultimatum. Then, his forward scouts had detected unusual activity at the edge of controlled space. Movement patterns that matched historical records of human fleet formations. And now, his communication officer was reporting the strangest development yet. They wished to schedule a meeting? Vraxkor's mandibles clicked in confusion. Yes, Supreme One. They have sent a formal request for a preliminary negotiation conference to discuss our territorial expansion proposal. The officer's antennae quivered nervously. They've included several possible dates and asked us to confirm our availability. This is preposterous! Vraxkor slammed a barbed appendage against his command throne. We do not negotiate, we conquer. There's more, Supreme One. They've requested that we fill out these forms. The officer transferred a document to the main display screen. It's called a Pre-Invasion Assessment and Resource Allocation Questionnaire. Vraxkor stared at the document in disbelief. It contained hundreds of fields requesting detailed information about Vreklar invasion strategies, fleet composition, resource requirements, and long-term occupation plans.
Is this some kind of joke? He hissed.
Our intelligence analysts believe it may be part of their death ritual, Supreme One, another officer suggested. The humans are known to document everything. It is said they once delayed responding to a Gorvan assault because they were still processing the paperwork from a previous conflict. And they won that conflict. They obliterated the entire Gorvan species, Supreme One. There are rumors they keep the documentation as trophies. Vraxkor's compound eyes narrowed as he studied the questionnaire more carefully. Section 24B asked respondents to list all known technical and biological vulnerabilities of your species for catering and accommodation purposes. They cannot possibly expect us to complete this, he muttered. The message indicates that failure to submit the completed form will result in our invasion request being deprioritized, the communication officer noted.
We are not requesting an invasion. We are executing one. Vraxkor's exoskeleton vibrated with fury.
Send word to the fleet. Accelerate our timeline. I want our forces at the human colony on Proxima Centauri B within one cycle. Let's see how they process that. They've taken the bait, Blackwood announced, striding into the command center with a satisfied grin. Vreklar fleet is moving toward Proxima at full speed, exactly as predicted. Foster looked up from the holographic display. You sound awfully pleased about an imminent attack on a human colony. A colony that was fully evacuated 3 days ago, Blackwood reminded her, and whose orbit is now bristling with cloaked defense platforms equipped with our sonic disruptors. Still risky, Barnes commented. What if they decide to just bombard the planet from orbit? Not their style. Blackwood shook his head. Vreklar are all about resource acquisition. They'll want to capture infrastructure intact, establish a beachhead. It's like clockwork. First wave will be shock troops and landing craft, followed by resource assessment teams. Rebecca frowned. You really do know a lot about them. Let's just say the collective has extensive field experience. Blackwood's expression darkened momentarily before he continued. Besides, we've added a little extra incentive to draw them in close. What kind of incentive? Foster asked suspiciously. Blackwood's smile returned. We may have left some very interesting classified documents in the colony's main database. Completely fake, of course, but containing just enough accurate information to seem legitimate, including some tantalizing details about a revolutionary new human technology being developed there. And they'll believe that? Milo looked skeptical. Information that seems carelessly secured is always more credible than information freely given. Blackwood shrugged. Old intelligence trick. Foster studied him thoughtfully. You know, for someone who left Earth Defense, you're remarkably willing to help us. Who says I left by choice? Blackwood's smile didn't reach his eyes. Let's just say that some of us recognized the Vreklar threat years before your analysts did. When we couldn't convince the bureaucracy to act, we found alternative employment. Before Foster could respond, alarms blared across the command center. Vreklar fleet has entered the Proxima system, Admiral Wilson reported. 87 vessels, primarily destroyer class with support craft. Right on schedule. Blackwood nodded. Time to spring the trap. The Battle of Proxima Centauri lasted precisely 27 minutes. It began with the Vreklar landing force descending toward the seemingly vulnerable colony. The moment their ships entered the atmosphere, thousands of previously cloaked defense satellites activated, bombarding the invaders with precisely calibrated ultrasonic pulses. The effect was immediate and devastating. Vreklar shock troops, renowned throughout the galaxy for their fearlessness, suddenly found themselves in excruciating pain as their exoskeletons began to fracture. Landing craft crashed as pilots lost control. Ground forces collapsed, thrashing helplessly. When the second wave arrived to assist their beleaguered comrades, they met the combined might of Earth's Fifth Fleet and the Collective's battlecruisers emerging from the dark side of the planet. With their natural armor compromised by the sonic weapons, the Vreklar ships offered little resistance. Supreme Commander Vraxkor, watching the disaster unfold from his command vessel at the edge of the system, faced a decision he had never encountered in his centuries of conquest. Retreat. All vessels disengage and regroup at fallback point Epsilon, he ordered, his voice modulator barely concealing his fury. This was merely a probing attack. The real invasion is yet to come. As his remaining ships limped away from the killing field, a message flashed across his communication screen. Thank you for your recent invasion attempt. We have processed your application and regret to inform you that it does not meet our current standards for planetary conquest. Please find attached Form 5592B, Post-Combat Assessment and Future Deterrence Agreement. Failure to complete this document within 5 standard cycles will result in immediate enforcement action. Attached was yet another human document, this one beginning with the ominous words, "The undersigned hereby acknowledges complete military defeat and agrees to the following terms of surrender." 1 week later, Rebecca found herself in the extraordinary position of processing the official surrender of the most feared conquering force in the galaxy. "Let me get this straight," she said, staring at the Reklar delegation across the conference table. "You're agreeing to withdraw from all occupied territories, pay reparations to the affected species, and confine your activities to your original home system. All because we asked you to fill out some forms?" The Reklar representative, a slightly smaller, less intimidating version of the warriors they'd encountered, clicked his mandibles nervously. "The Supreme Commander has determined that expansion into human-protected sectors is inefficient." The translator rendered his screeching reply. "Your species' capacity for administrative complications exceeds our strategic patience." Rebecca exchanged bemused glances with Milo, who was diligently recording the proceedings. "Well, we do pride ourselves on our thoroughness," she offered diplomatically. "Your death speakers require 17 separate authorizations before launching a counterattack," the Reklar observed with what sounded like horrified admiration. "Yet when you finally act, entire fleets vanish. It is unsettling." "Death speakers?" Milo whispered. "I think he means lawyers," Rebecca whispered back. General Foster, who had been silently observing, leaned forward. "For clarity, this agreement extends to all species currently under Earth protection, as well as our allies listed in Appendix C?" "Yes." The Reklar representative's compound eyes darted between the humans nervously. "Though we request modification to paragraph 27 regarding immediate withdrawal timelines. Some occupied worlds will require longer to evacuate without destructive environmental impact." "A reasonable request," Foster nodded. "We can adjust the schedule, provided you accept regular compliance inspections." "This is acceptable." The Reklar hesitated, then added, "There is a question our Supreme Commander wishes me to convey." "Go ahead." "Why did you not respond to the galactic distress signals earlier? Your inaction allowed our conquest to proceed for many cycles." Rebecca felt her face grow hot. "There was a communication oversight. Our response protocols have since been updated." The Reklar seemed to consider this. "So you were neither afraid nor indifferent. You were processing paperwork?" "Something like that," Foster confirmed with remarkable composure. "Terrifying," the Reklar muttered, barely loud enough for the translator to catch. After the delegation departed to communicate the terms to their fleet, Blackwood materialized from the shadows at the back of the conference room. "And that," he announced with obvious satisfaction, "is how humanity accidentally discovered the galaxy's most effective psychological warfare tactic against the Reklar, bureaucracy." 6 months later, Rebecca found herself promoted to Director of Interspecies Crisis Response, with a significantly expanded staff and a brand new priority flagging system for the message queue. "Incoming transmission from the Cloraxian High Command," her assistant called out. "Admiral Kivlox requests a personal audience." "Put him through." Rebecca nodded, straightening her newly issued diplomatic uniform. The Admiral's insectoid face appeared on the main screen, mandibles arranged in what she'd learned to recognize as the Cloraxian equivalent of a smile. "Director Walsh," he clicked respectfully, "the Galactic Council has been officially reinstated today. The last of the Reklar occupation forces have withdrawn from Quilaxian territory." "That's excellent news, Admiral." "Indeed. And in recognition of Earth's decisive role in ending the Reklar threat, the Council has voted unanimously to offer humanity a permanent seat." Kivlox's compound eyes gleamed with what might have been amusement. "Though they do request that Earth representatives arrive punctually for Council sessions." Rebecca laughed. "We'll do our best, Admiral." After ending the transmission, she turned to find Milo standing in her office doorway, holding a data tablet. "So," he grinned, "should I prepare the acceptance forms for the Council invitation?" "Absolutely. In triplicate, of course." "Of course." Milo hesitated. "Have you heard from Blackwood lately?" "The Collective is busy helping the Quilaxians rebuild. Apparently they're turning quite a profit on Vreklar salvage." Rebecca smiled wryly. "He did send me this, though." She pulled up an image on her screen. A captured Reklar ship, now repurposed as a collective patrol vessel. Emblazoned on its hull was a new insignia, Earth's traditional olive branches surrounding a clipboard and pen.
Is that humanity's new galactic symbol? Rebecca confirmed.
Apparently, word has spread about how we defeated the Reklar. The clipboard is now more feared than any weapon. Milo burst out laughing. If only my old high school guidance counselor could see me now. Administrative skills will never save the world, she said. Little did she know, Rebecca agreed, turning to gaze out her office window at the stars. Little did any of us know. In the depths of space, aboard a solitary vessel on the very edge of the Milky Way, Supreme Commander Vraxkor reviewed the final surrender documentation. Each page required his biological signature, a humiliating concession to human procedural obsessions. His second-in-command approached cautiously. The last transport has departed Quilaxian space, Supreme One. Our species is now confined to the home system, as agreed. Vraxkor's claws tightened around the data tablet. For now. Supreme One?
The humans believe they have defeated us with their forms and regulations,
Vraxkor hissed. But they have merely taught us a valuable lesson. He pulled up a new document on his screen, a perfect replica of an Earth administrative template, but filled with Vreklar text. If bureaucracy is the human's greatest weapon, he clicked, then we shall master it ourselves. Begin the implementation of Project Administrative Dominance immediately. His subordinate's antennae twitched uncertainly. You intend to out-paperwork the humans? Precisely. Vraxkor's compound eyes gleamed with malevolent determination. Let them drown in requisition forms and compliance reports. In 50 cycles, when they are sufficiently distracted by regulatory procedures, we shall return. A most insidious strategy, Supreme One. Indeed. Vraxkor turned to gaze at the distant stars. But first, we must complete their surrender documentation. Exactly as specified, down to the last comma. The commander picked up a stylus and began meticulously signing each page, muttering to himself. Know your enemy. Become your enemy. Defeat your enemy. Somewhere in the vast bureaucratic labyrinth of Earth's extraterrestrial response unit, a new priority message appeared in the system, promptly categorized, flagged, and filed for appropriate action. Alert. Unusual administrative activity detected in Vreklar communication patterns. Possible cultural assimilation of bureaucratic processes. Recommended response, Form 7734D. And in her office, Director Rebecca Walsh smiled as she opened the notification. This time they'd be ready. The end.